initial thoughts on Indiana and how they're going to challenge you on tomorrow night?
Right. I think anytime you have, a team, and I guess we can say we have it to a degree, but they play a couple different ways. Obviously, when they have both their bigs in versus when Luke Goody plays the 4. So, I think that's what jumps out more than anything, is just making sure you're prepared, to how they play the game. With 2 different lineups through the course of the game. No matter who starts, at some point they'll have both bigs in, at some point they'll have him in, playing the 4. And that normally ends up being Ballo unless there's foul trouble. But you really don't know because, Malik's coming back from his injury, so he hasn't yet got the minutes that he had before because they're trying to wean him back in. But I think you saw a pretty good sample size of the finish of the game. He had struggled shooting up to that point, but then he played pretty well and made some plays down the stretch there. So I think that's what jumps out, more than anything. And then their guards' ability, you got to kind of look at each guard and grab their best game, and then collectively say, what if they all had their best game at the same time? Like Mabako has shot the ball a lot better here the last 2 games. Like we've all seen through the years, Trey Galloway, and how good of a player he is. Last year when Washington State played Stanford, Carlisle had 31, Rice had 35 in the same game. And so I think that kind of jumps out at you as a coach when you look at it and you're saying, well, they haven't quite, been able to get it going. Well, it's hard. It's hard when you adjust and your 5's a good player, your 4's a good player, your 3's a good player, they have other good guards. It's hard to blend, and that's what we have to look at, is all those guys having their best game at the same time. And I always say this is just not Indiana. I always say that. I said expect everybody to be at their best and prepare for everybody at their best, and it just keeps you honest. Even though like a guy doesn't shoot 3s very much or whatever, like just don't hand him a 3. You just don't give him a 3. Like now, if you have to help and stop and do things else and he gets one, then just organically that's cool. But that's the way we look at it. We look at that, however we play every team. But I think for them, it even holds more true because we've all seen, we played Ballo at Arizona, so we've seen Ballo dominate a game. We've seen Malik Renew dominate a game. We've seen Mabako go off for 25. I just mentioned 2 guys, that scored 30 in the same game. So I can go on and on, right? So I think that's first and foremost for us is we have to give them our best crack, but we have to also walk into it thinking that we're going to get theirs also.
Obviously, neither Trey or Caleb are your typical 7-foot plus,
right?
Monster, but they're pretty interchangeable. How much does that help when you're playing Wolf and Golden or you're playing?
Yeah, it helps defensively, especially. Yeah, when you're mixing, you have the matchups and you're mixing things up, and those guys and their ability to kind of guard different guys, but they don't have that elite size. And I think more than anything is being able to guard and play against elite size and try to play to your strengths and not get into wrestling matches, because normally in those wrestling matches you're going to lose when you're giving up 3-4 inches and 30 pounds. But like those guys are tough covers. Ballo was a tough cover for us when we played him in Arizona. We've obviously played Malik multiple times here in Indiana, and he's a really good player. But they got more players than just those 2 guys. They have a lot of really good players.
Just the ball pressure you got from CJ, Ja'Cory, Miles against Michigan. You expect that on an every game basis now, or is that a matchup type of?
No, we need to do a good job guarding the ball. I think when we've done that in the start of the season, we had blow-bys. So we'd go get people and we'd pressure them, they just go by us. And now we've done a much better job of being able to guard the ball in the open court, but also contain the ball in the open court. But we also, we have to be able to respect the athleticism, the quickness of Rice, Galloway getting downhill, Carlisle, like all their pieces there. Like, you still got to go the next game and be able to do the same thing. And maybe it affects them, maybe it doesn't. But, that's ultimately what we want to do.
With IU's propensity to play 2 bigs, is there some similarities between the way you attacked Michigan's 2 bigs with how you want to put them in?
Offensively it's different, right? Because Danny Wolf handles the basketball. Right. That was so unique, right? You don't see that a lot. But just trying to keep both of those guys off the glass more than anything. Like you work hard to stay out of rotations, and like you get into rotations and then you have to box out Renault or Balo. Like, they're normally going to get it. They've proven that. So you got to be able to stay out of those rotations so you keep that rebound responsibility. You go now when you got to help as a big, you got to guard cracking, and like it just doesn't work. It's like the mouse and the elephant, right? And that piece right there for us has got to be important. And it kind of led to Brian's question is, if you can't contain the dribble, now you got to help. And now a shot goes up while you're in help. Now you got littles on bigs, and it's you normally end up fouling. You give up an offensive rebounds and fouling. So I think that's going to be important for us. And we got to play in transition. Our number strength from transition has been good, but if we can cause turnovers or we can get defensive rebounds, you can get in transition. Well, if you can't cause turnovers and you can't get a rebound, it's going to eliminate your transition opportunities.
You had high expectations for Trey coming into the season, talking about it, an all-conference kind of breakthrough. How would you assess what he's done now we're halfway through Big Ten play?
Yeah, exactly what we thought. Yeah, he's a good player. He can score. Braden and him really work together. Like we do a lot of the pocket passes and the short rolls that we didn't do with Zachary, and for obvious reasons. And like that's really opened up things for us and his ability to make plays and to pass. Like he's done a good job passing the ball too. But he's worked hard, man. He's put in a lot of time, and in the time he has down from his responsibility with us, he's working, and you can see that. And that's why I'm just, not really sure about him. I'm sure about his work. If that makes any sense, right? Like, guys always want the confidence from you, and my confidence comes from me watching you work, and then or lack thereof, right? You get some guys that you're like, hey man, like your effort's great, but your results have to be great. Like if the game is effort and results. Well, Trey's always given that effort. He just got hindered because of Zach. From a spacing standpoint, we didn't play him sometimes, and he waited and he kept working, and here we are.
So after the 5 straight 3-day turnarounds, you had a couple days to, practice in a non-opponent specific manner. Probably, was there anything you wanted to really emphasize in terms of get back to basics perspective?
Not really. Not really. All the same things we work on. More passing and catching, more being fundamentally sound, working on our angles of screens, like making sure we're setting good screens and make sure we're being legal. And then being active defensively, like understanding when we want to get into doubles, when we don't, when we got to get into a double and get out of it quick. Got to be able to disrupt passers. Like, no, just really just harping on all the things that we normally harp on.
Do you see this game as like a season or a program measuring stick in a lot of ways? Because that seems to be the perception from a lot of fans.
Not really. Just it's game 11. It's like the first game of the second part of the conference season. So we're 8-2, and now just trying to get a win to to get going, just to try to get it. So like I always harp on them about putting yourself in position to win a Big Ten championship. We're not in a position to do that. And so keep helping your cause, keep putting yourself in there, and you're just hoping with like 2-3 games to go that you've got a chance to do it. But you got to take care of home court. We've let one slip away from us, and we got to play better. I thought other night against Michigan we played better.
Was Cam kind of evolved this year where he's got to be more than just a 3-and-D guy, and he saw his role kind of be all over the place at different times this season.
Yeah, well, I think Daniel's injury kind of moved some things. He was one of the guys that got moved in that equation. So just trying to get the best group out there, and it probably took us the most time to get there. This team, more than anything, you just kind of know with the other teams it kind of worked, and you work through your best players and your best guys, and where does that get us? And just think if he's in our backcourt right now, like what that means to other people, right? Or what that means to him. And so you saw a lot of spot minutes from pretty solid players early in the year because everybody was trying. We were trying to give everybody that opportunity and see how they were and how they played when the popcorn was turned. Because guys weren't separating themselves in practice. Doesn't mean they were bad, but it definitely means they weren't great. And so you just were like, hey, it normally just takes care of itself. You're like, well, who are you going to play? I'm like, play the guys who play the best. He's like, they're going to practice every day for 3 hours. You're going to watch them. You're going to be with them in June, July, August, September. It's easy. And sometimes it's not easy. And this wasn't easy. So like getting him to say like, what's best for our team is like sticking him at the 4. And then it offsets us, right? Because now, like, can he guard those really big guys? Like, that's a hard thing. Like when you're that body type to guard someone like a Malik Renew, that's really hard. It's really difficult. But then you have an advantage on the other end. As he plays behind the ball screen, as he gets spaced, as he gets whatever, now you take someone of ultimate size and you bring him away from the basket, which, I could write a dissertation on it, dealing with the size that we've had and people pulling him away from the rim. And so he's handled it. We didn't start him, and he kept finishing games. And then we started him, but I don't know if I started him at that time. He deserved to. But he had to go up against A&M, and he had to go against Auburn, and those dudes, man. And I don't know if that was the best matchup. It's just a little bit different. Sometimes you don't start because now when you sub, they sub out. And sometimes you can get that cross match where it helps you. So sometimes that's helped him, sometimes that's hurt him. But more than anything, he's done a good job. He's been solid. Just trying to get him defensively to use his athleticism and his quickness. When they do have it on the perimeter, he should be on it. We've had him jam before and pick up the ball last year. And so here he is guarding Malik Renew, but yet he used to pick up the point guard. And so it's a little bit, you got to be able to flip it. And sometimes you can, sometimes you can't, because when it gets flipped on you, that's when you got a sub right there. But if it flips in your direction and they can't handle you out there, that's when you can get one of them kind of game-changing sequences where you can get 2 or 3 threes in a short amount of time, and that can really help you, give you that motivation.
You guys finally had a couple days off. Is there any secret instruction to give to your guys, or is it just get away?
No, we took off Saturday and Sunday, then we practiced Monday, and then we didn't practice yesterday. We didn't practice Tuesday, then we practiced Wednesday, and we'll practice today. Got home, just got my days messed up there. No, not really. I don't practice 3 days in a row before a game, no matter how it shakes out. I just think we start practicing in June, right? And you look at it in February, is around the corner, February, Saturday. So at the point, if you ain't got it figured out now, you don't know what you're doing. You don't know what you're doing. You know what I mean? If we get in the game and we call something and somebody doesn't know what they're doing, it's shit, I shouldn't be coaching. Just kind of refining some things and being on the same page. But I think the Saturday and Sunday getting away, I think that really helps more than anything. And then understanding, you don't want to under-prepare, but you also don't want to overtrain. Does that make sense? Yeah.
Because we're going to start out the rivalry is what it means to folks who grew up in the state, obviously. You're probably at the top of the list of people involved now.
Right.
What's it mean to you now that you've been in it for most of your life?
I think it's satisfaction. You want to win, you want to beat your rival. You don't want them to have the upper hand on you. For us, we want to win the Big Ten. That comes before the NCAAs. People always put their focus on the NCAAs, and we schedule that way. We prepare that way. But when you're playing and you're in the trenches, man, it's hard. It's hard to play 20 games and be the best. It really is. And so but we don't look at it as just another game. People say that, so you look at it like another game. No, not at all. It's a rivalry game, man. It's cool. Anybody that's been in a conference growing up and had a rival, or whatever, it doesn't matter. Cubs, Cardinals, Duke, North Carolina, things of that nature. It makes it enjoyable. It's probably more for the fans, right? But I am a Purdue fan, so I just happen to coach the team.
The way you split up, delegate offense, defense, and those things on your staff, how much does that help you get ahead of things as opposed to before you did that? As far as
right, no question, it does a lot. I think a lot of head coaches want to take it all on because they're supposed to take it all on, and I just kind of looked at it about 12 years ago, why don't we just do what's best for Purdue? And you got to be able to sit there, and a lot of times they're well, what's the assistant coach got the grease board for? And they're paying him $5 million and he doesn't have it. They say that. Well, what's best for Purdue? Let's not get away from it. Let's quit living in this world where our ego dictates things. Let's drop our ego and do what's best for our program and do what's best for our team. And so doesn't mean that we haven't discussed some things and went through things and done things, like, you know what I mean? But I don't want people on my staff, and they used to do it, we used to be all over the place. I mean, we used to be all over the place, but that's what everybody does. They're all over the place. So some guy gets the scout, and he's got the out of bounds plays. He's got the other team's out of bounds plays. He's got the sets. He's got what we're running. He's got all these things. And a lot of people still do this, where my guys just have an area, and then we just leave it alone. Doesn't mean they can't speak up in a meeting about something different that's out of their area. But once the game starts, like, I don't like clutter. I don't like the mind of a player being cluttered. It's hard enough. So let's do everything in our power to make it easier for our players. And so, like, now Sasha handles our out of bounds and side out of bounds. PJ handles our offense. Doesn't mean we don't converse about stuff. We just got done talking for 20 minutes about some particular stuff. Paul and Terry split the scouts. B always does the personnel. You know, Elliot, I probably talk to Elliot more than anybody. He's an unemotional person. He's a good thinker, whatever. And so I sit now next to him, and he just kind of talks, like, during the game. People are like, well, how easy your Dobo? Like, well, he sat here for 20 years and watched all these games. Like, you can't sit there as a normal fan and sit there and say, hey, that's not going to work, or this is going to work. Well, so, like, Andy's unemotional. I don't like the emotion of it. And so, like, when I get emotional, I forget who's on offense and defense. I do have a piece to me that gets emotional. I just try like hell not to get there, because I'm not a very smart person when I'm emotional. Most people are fools when they're emotional. So, like, yeah, that's why I went to just a lot of soul searching, and we lost back-to-back years, and I preferred not to get fired. And so I wanted to stay here. I think this is a good place. I think the school's a cool place. I like the community. I like all the right things, and I want to win. I want to win for Purdue. And so, like, along those lines, I said, hey, man, I gotta, before I can make my players better, like, I gotta be better. And so I just switched up a lot of things. I actually was just sitting on my chair watching NFL films. And that's how a lot of it started. I said, I'm gonna recruit a smarter player. I'm gonna recruit a more skilled player. And then I'm gonna change how we do things offensively. In those NFL films, you know how they reel off a play and Brett Favre yells 18 words? How in the hell do you know what 18 words is? But, like, you need to know 2 of them, you need to know 2 of them, you need to know 2 of them. I'm Brett Favre, I gotta know all of them. And at times he was a riverboat gambler anyway, so he just kind of, he rolled too. But, like, that piece of it is what I wanted. I wanted to run a bunch of things offensively, but not make it complicated. And so I just went to a system where everything that we call, and all those guys know, the opponents, they all know everything that we do, but it's 6 words, but they all have a definition. And so, like, now it just rolls. And so, like, I started it with that. Then I said, well, if I'm getting that clarity offensively, why can't I get more of a clarity defensively? Like, why can't I get to that point? And why can't I get it to where I can coach my coaches and do a better job, where you don't have to yell and scream and go crazy, where you can build relationships, you can communicate, you can talk, and now everybody is on the same page. But let's recruit intelligent players so we can collaborate too. Like, I collaborate with Fletcher Lawyer all the time now. You know, if you watch me talk to him, if you watch me talk to Braden's a little bit more emotional. And so, like, you gotta, like, gauge that a little bit. But he's very intelligent and he's very competitive. But we collaborate a lot of stuff and kind of talk through things. But, like, you're empowering them when you do that. You're giving them ownership. Now, you can't give fools ownership. You get some wise ass who's always running his mouth, who doesn't know what's going on. Like, first of all, you don't want him. Second of all, you messed up and you took him, but he can't get ownership. Like, you know, you got to be able to, you know, rein that in a little bit. So, like, you got to be careful in how you do that. But if you get hardworking, good dudes that care about Purdue basketball, just want to win, and that's it. Oh man, you know, make them feel like king of the jungle. Like, make them feel as good as you can, because now that's only going to lift them up and lift your team up.
Who wasn't another basketball